So how's it going, Unshackled Network and friends and family beyond? Anybody watching this, I hope this video finds you well and your family the same. I just thought I would jump in here and give you guys, specifically to my Unshackled family, some thoughts about what we should be thinking, believing, and doing in the difficult times we find us in a world of the coronavirus right now. And there's some realities we need to embrace. There's some truths we need to understand and maybe even just remember and meditate on. And then there are some brave, bold actions that I believe God's calling us to. The big overarching theme of this has not changed from what it was yesterday, a month ago, 6 months ago. God's calling his people to live and love with care, to live in such a way that demonstrates that he is sovereign and that he absolutely loves you and the rest of his creation. So we need to be continuing to live with that reality. Now, there's some other realities that we need to embrace, specifically related to the coronavirus. I've written up some things based on some research I've done. I'm going to be including some links to some sources that I think will help you engage with this further. But what do we know about the virus? One, COVID-19, as it's called, has been declared a global pandemic by the World Health Organization and is spreading rapidly. We can be infected and possibly not show symptoms early on or even ever, but are still contagious. No vaccine is yet available as of Friday the 13th, March 13th. Estimates say that anywhere between 80% and maybe up to 90% of those with the virus have only mild symptoms, including fever, cough, and shortness of breath. So that's good news. People, however, people over 60 or those with kidney diseases, diabetes, and other diseases are most severely affected by the virus. So they are the ones that are most vulnerable in these times. While many can be affected mildly, the increasing spread of the virus will overwhelm our medical infrastructure, increasing the likelihood that those in the greatest need that won't be receiving the appropriate care. So in this times, as you're thinking about the realities of the virus, don't just think about you and whether or not you're afraid you're gonna catch it, or whether or not you're afraid you're gonna die or anything like that. Don't let that the absence of that fear be the thing that determines what you do, but be thinking, once again, living and loving with care. Be thinking about specifically the most vulnerable in your midst, and what your the ways that you engage with life right now, how that could impact them, because many of us that have great access to health care, many of us that are really strong and don't have any illnesses or anything like that, will be fine. But there are some of those that, while we might contract it and be fine, that then could get it from us, that might not have that same response. So we need to be living and loving with care. But more important than even just that reality, yes, we're in that reality, here's a truth we need to embrace and even just remember, because most of us already know this. It's about God. One, God's not surprised by this, right? Colossians 1:16-17 says, "For by him all things were created." We're talking about Jesus. "In heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and for him. And he is before all things, and in him all things hold together," including the coronavirus, COVID-19. God is sovereign over all things. This did not surprise him. He's not shaken. So trust in him. God has a plan to use this. That's the second reality, truth that we should remember. God has a plan to use the coronavirus in 2020 right now. Job 42 says this about God's plans: "I know that you can do all things, and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted." So any plan that God has can't be stopped, can't be broken down. It can't even be shifted. His plan will succeed. Romans 8:28. Y'all know this. Sometimes we need to be reminded of this. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good for those who are called according to his purposes. So he's putting the coronavirus in his pot and he's stirring it up, and he's going to make something beautiful out of this. So however, we have a way that he's calling us to respond. There's wisdom and there's love that should be coming out of us. But what shouldn't be coming out of us is panic. We should not be responding to this out of just sheer fear. All right, so we should not panic. Matthew 10:29-31 says this. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? And not one of them will fall to the ground apart from your Father. But even the hairs of your head are all numbered. Fear not, therefore. You are of more value than many sparrows. Over 300 times throughout the Bible, God says, fear not, fear not. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Cast away fear, you guys, and recognize that the sovereign God, the one who's not surprised, the one who has a plan, is absolutely still on the throne. Okay? Don't be afraid. There's no reason to panic. So what should we do? We should be excelling in love in times like these. Our church, the body of Christ, was made for such a time as this, right? 1 Corinthians 13:13 says, and now these 3 remain: faith, hope, and love, right? So faith, we should be trusting God, trusting that he is sovereign, believing in him, believing in the work that his son Jesus did on the cross. The gospel is still true. And hope, like everything's not going to completely crumble. While the Lord may completely do away with this earth right now and bring his new earth and heaven come down, that may be true. Yet we have a hope in him. We have a hope that will not be shaken. We have a hope that throughout any times, destruction of any earthly realms, that we're going to be with him through eternity. That's our hope. That doesn't shake. And love. And now these 3 remain: faith, hope, and love. And he says, but the greatest of these is love. Remember, you receive great love from him, and he demonstrated it by Jesus' death on the cross. Now we are to give that love. John 13:35 gives us the reason why that's so important. It says, by this everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. Let us not, in these times of corona, be shaken, be stirred to the fact that we don't remember our call is to continue to live and to love. And let's do that with care. And all the while, pray without ceasing. So the last thing I'm going to say to you is pray. And one Bible passage I would even have you guys pray and meditate and just like be soaking in for your family, for you, for anybody that you're concerned about, is Psalm 91. First 7 verses say this: whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. Surely he will save you from the fowler's snare and from the deadly pestilence. Y'all hear that? From the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, nor the plague that destroys at midday. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. Let's be a praying church. Let's be found faithful, trusting and believing in our God, and yet living with care, loving with care. All right? So what does this practically mean for the Unshackled Network and network events? During this current season that we find ourselves in right now, we will be suspending our larger network-wide events like the table until further notice. We do this once a month, the table. So hopefully by next month, the state of things with the coronavirus will have shifted, and we will feel like that maybe we can still gather as a large group as a way to demonstrate care. Like, just so you know, we're not canceling this out of fear. We're canceling this out of love and concern for those that are vulnerable in our midst and beyond, right? We absolutely are on mission for the most vulnerable. So it would be reckless and unwise for us to do things and live in such a way that demonstrates lack of concern for those that would be most affected. So hopefully we'll be able to, you know, continue those gatherings again starting in April. Um, our prayer gatherings are still a go. March 26th at Frontline Street Intervention, prayers happening. This would be a time unlike any other, you guys, for us to absolutely prioritize our gathering together for prayer. Microchurch gatherings are still a go. I want to encourage you that if you decide that as you're praying with the Lord that you don't want to attend, that is up to you. That is your decision. I do want to say, don't let the enemy keep you in isolation just out of fear. If you're sick, if you know you've gotten ill and you're not sure whether it's corona or whatever it is, please do, for love and sake of others, or for the sake of others, please do quarantine yourself. Matter of fact, I actually am working from home because I fell ill yesterday. Not like severely, you know, it's a cold, I think, but I don't really know for sure. And out of loving concern for others, I don't want to, put people at undue risk. But like, if you're healthy, go to the gatherings that we're putting on, like their micro churches, like Beats, Bars, and Bible, or Freedom Fighters, or Frontline Street Interventions, Holy Homies, or G Life. As those are still in operation and you're feeling healthy, go, because the Lord would want you to continue to be encouraged, but the enemy would absolutely want you to be isolated as much as possible. We're still going to consider a social distancing. So you guys think about, your physical interactions with one another. I'm going to have links, like I said, to some more thoughts on these CDC's website and their recommendations for faith-based communities and things like that. But I just want to let you know of the specific state of things that we got going on here. So be checking out those links. Go to unshacklednetwork.org for maybe an update on the next table gathering that we hope we'll be able to do in April. Other than that, remember, God is not surprised by this, right? He's not shaken. He's still on the throne. He's got a plan in this, and he's calling us to be praying, to continue to be loving one another, and we should not be panicking. Don't live in fear, but go in peace and love. Sorry this has been so long, but I hope it's been helpful. Hope it's been a blessing to you. I'll be praying for each other, y'all. I'll be praying for you until I see you again. Peace.